Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. It's 10 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock, and our next conversation this Tobago Thursdays is about avian influenza. Joining us, no stranger to the Now Morning Show, Dr. Paul Crooks, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Veterinary Association, and Dr. Shayne Ramsubeik, Diplomat of the American College of Poultry Veterinary and Lecturer of Avian and Exotic Medicine at the School of Veterinary Medicine at the UWI. Good morning, doctors, and welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Getting straight into the conversation, as of course this has been trending. We've already seen one person pass in the US due to H5N1. Also in Puerto Rico, they have confirmed cases. So, of course, this is something that we do need to touch on. Dr. Crooks, let's start with you. What is the current status of avian influenza in Trinidad and Tobago, and how prepared are we to prevent an outbreak if needed?
So currently, there are no diagnosed cases of highly pathogenic avian influenza in Trinidad and Tobago. Farmers would need to be aware, and in fact, members of the public as well, that what we're really looking for is a significant increase in mortality. When people farm, there's a certain base level or expected level of deaths on a daily basis, on a monthly basis. So when your the level of death in your flock increases very significantly, perhaps even to 80% or greater, then you may be looking at a highly pathogenic avian influenza outbreak. It's not necessarily that you're going to see signs of the flu in the birds. However, what you may also notice is that there are wild birds that are found dead, suddenly dead. It's important, and members of the public know, to avoid contact with these animals. And yes, there are ways we can respond. The ministry has veterinarians who can be called out in the cases where avian influenza is suspected, and there are tests available. So please, for the most part, if you are involved in poultry production, take precautions if you see that your animals have died, or if you are involved in wildlife, please avoid contact with any dead animals and call the necessary authorities at the Ministry of Agriculture. However, to answer the question directly, there are no cases currently.
Good to hear. Dr. Ramsubeik, let's bring you into the conversation. Good morning again and welcome back. What would you say makes this particular outbreak so concerning for the, Trinidad and Tobago and the world in general?
Well, firstly, we should know that this current outbreak has been ongoing for over more than 4 or 5 years now. All right. This outbreak is caused by the highly pathogenic avian influenza H5N1. All right. And the thing about avian influenza viruses that we should note is that these viruses changes rapidly and mutates really rapidly. All right. And there's also the zoonotic potential, meaning the ability of the virus to spread from animal to human and vice versa. What's unique about this ongoing outbreak? It's the large geographical distribution. This virus has spread from Asia to Europe to North America to Central and South America, and now its presence in the Caribbean. All right, so that's a major factor. Also, there has been spillover, meaning that with flu or even influenza A, it's not only a virus that affects birds, but it affects humans and other mammalian species. All right. We have seen detections and cases in dairy cows in the US. Okay. And we have also seen a spread of this disease from dairy cows to humans and felines, more so as a result of consumption of raw milk. The virus is now being spread in the United States via raw milk. Raw milk being milk that has not been pasteurized. Okay, so all of these factors and the fact that it's still ongoing makes it a disease that can result in significant losses, both on the food security side, but also on the human side.
Dr. Ramsubeik, can you explain to us the difference in symptoms, how they present in animals versus humans, and how quickly these should be addressed if they are determined?
All right, so let's start with humans first. So presently, this ongoing outbreak, and I'm just going to talk about what's happening in the US. As of 2024, there have been 67 confirmed cases in humans. Out of those cases, one case has resulted in the death of one person, and that person has been person that worked directly with poultry. It was an elderly person that was considered immunocompromised. So that's the high risk group there. Persons that work directly with infected poultry or infected animals, in this case also dairy cattle. All right, and elderly, the young or immunocompromised. In humans, the majority of the cases presented in the US presented with redness of the eye, which is a conjunctivitis, basically. All right, and it was limiting, self-limiting. Okay, with respect to our poultry, what we are seeing in our birds, highly pathogenic avian influenza, is a lethal systemic disease that results in sudden high mortality, approaching almost 100%. We see rapid drops in feed and water consumption. If it's egg-producing birds, we see a drop in egg production, and it can also affect the misshapen eggs. You can also see the disease in our birds also present with respiratory signs, coughing, sneezing, nasal discharge, and it can also present with neurological signs such as tremors, head shaking. All right. In the dairy cattle, how this disease presented, what they reported was a drop in milk production. And the changes that was observed was more so in the milk itself. The milk appeared yellow, thickened, and what we describe as a typical mastitis in the dairy cows. It should be noted that most of the dairy cattle that were affected actually recovered from the virus. Okay, the main mortality that we see with avian influenza is more so in our avian species, more specifically our poultry.
And Dr. Crooks, if the general public or farmers see some of these symptoms being exhibited by their animals, what measures should they take?
So two things I want to let the viewers know, the viewing public, is that your poultry and your meat and your poultry products are safe to consume. Very importantly, I want that to be a take-home message. You do not need to stop eating chicken. There are potentially trade implications, of course, but poultry is safe to consume, poultry meat is safe to consume. So please know that. However, as a farmer or member of the public who is observing dead birds in your environment and you're concerned that this may be avian influenza, again, you're looking at 50% mortality or sudden death in wild bird species, please do not handle these animals directly. If you must be gloved, perhaps even double gloved, and also you could consider wearing a mask. But still, call the Ministry of Agriculture, or in the case of Tobago, call the Veterinary Diagnostic Lab or the Division of Food Security.
With regards to that, are you aware as to whether or not any measures are already in place to deal with these challenges if they do arise?
Yes. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Ramsubeik.
So last year, as of 2024, there was a stakeholder conference as well as a simulation, all in an attempt to update our avian influenza contingency plan. The School of Veterinary Medicine has been working alongside ICA and the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries and all stakeholders to update that avian influenza contingency plan. So there are measures in place, updated measures in place to address the likelihood of the possibility of a suspected avian influenza case.
And Dr. Crooks, and also open to Dr. Ramsubeik as well, if avian influenza does reach our shores, how would it impact, or would it impact at all, of course, our local poultry and our food security?
So two things, Dr. Ramsubeik can jump in after, but I'll say two things for sure. One is we're going to see a decrease in production, even if it just means we can contain the virus to an individual farm, that farm will have to be depopulated. necessarily. So the birds will be destroyed in a humane way. But that does mean that those birds and the younger birds that were growing up and maybe the eggs that were being produced on that farm are no longer available to the members of the public. And that farmer may not be compensated in the way that the farmer should be for all of the losses that he experiences in that experience. So my recommendation is generally farmers know the word biosecurity. Most farmers should know it. If you don't know it, please Google it. It basically means controlling animals coming onto your farm and animals going off your farm, even two-legged animals. And basically, the idea behind that is to limit exposure of your animals to disease, because that is where you may introduce highly pathogenic avian influenza to your farm and then experience the losses. And of course, if it isn't contained well, then we're talking about loss of production across the country, and perhaps we won't be able to export poultry products or live animals to other countries where we may have done so before.
Dr.
Yeah, let me
Ramsubeik?
just reiterate that the main impact of this disease is going to be on food and job security. The poultry industry plays a major role in terms of food security in Trinidad and Tobago. It's an affordable source of animal protein, culturally accepted, a healthy source of animal protein. And the industry, our local industry, employs a significant amount of persons. So that will be a major impact in terms of on the livelihood of our citizens. And then we must be aware, although the risk to humans, which we will emphasize, is low, all right, there's always the potential that, there is spread of disease from animal to human. And let's reiterate, globally, there have been no cases of human to human transmission of this disease. All detected cases has been from humans that are in direct contact with infected animals. And it is totally safe to consume poultry meat that has been properly cooked, that is not associated with this disease. There's no association of transmission of highly pathogenic avian influenza from the consumption of poultry meat. That being said, if an animal or poultry is infected with avian influenza, it would not enter the food chain, all right?
Noted, and of course needed to be expressed. Another thing that we have seen circulating is quite a bit of misinformation. We would like to clear up, Dr. Ramsubeik, in your assessment thus far, do you think there is a likelihood that this could evolve into a pandemic?
And that is a question that all of the experts will answer, and the simple answer is we just don't know. There is the likelihood. Will it happen? We just don't know. What we know about this disease, this is a global disease. All right, this virus continues to change. All right, there's no evidence to suggest that it has adapted to the human population. But it's something we have to be aware of because of its impact both on our animals and human beings. But we just don't know right now, but prevention is totally better than cure, and awareness and education is a major part of our preventative strategy.
Well, Dr. Ramsubeik and Dr. Crooks, thank you very much for joining us this morning and providing some clarification. All the best and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Ramsubeik and Dr. Crooks joining us this morning speaking about the avian influenza. Stay tuned. There's more coming up after this short break.